both George Washington and Thomas Jefferson warned about what they called entangling alliances. It was basically the foundation of our isolationist foreign policy, and to sum it up, it goes like this. We're friends with country A, and we agree to come to their aid if they're attacked. And that's part of a treaty where we get something in exchange. And then we go to friendly country B, and we agree that we will come to their aid if they're attacked in exchange for some other deal, and it's a treaty. The problem is country A attacks country B. Now what do? So they warned against that. Actually, the Bible also warns against entangling alliances in the form of oaths and swearing and such. For the verse in the Bible, Matthew 5:34 says, "But I say unto you, swear, not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne." Now, I like the way it's echoed in James chapter 5, verse 12. Makes a little more sense to me. "But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, nor by earth, neither by any other oath. Let your yea be yea, and let your nay be nay, lest ye fall into condemnation." That's kind of the King James Version. Yet vows, pledges, promises, and oaths are intricately woven into our culture. For example, we all say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. We take wedding vows. We have swearing-in ceremonies for political offices. Mortgages and other loans are promises and pledges. Court testimony, we're sworn in. Speaking of which, I was recently in the pool of jurors to be selected, and we had to be sworn in. And when they sworn in, I was asked to repeat, "I hereby swear or affirm," blah, blah, blah. Or affirm. What's up with that? Well, apparently, some defendant refused to be sworn in, citing that it was against their religion to swear or take an oath. Citing the text that we just reviewed. And I wish I would have been the prosecutor, because I would have liked to ask the person, did their religion also have problems with whatever they were being accused of? So, are we never, under any circumstances, to take a public vow of any kind? That kind of would seem to be the literal translation of those verses. However, the literal translation raises some practical, questions and are downright problematic. So let me try to simplify it. Let's go back to the 10 Commandments for some guidance. But there's the one about taking the Lord's name in vain. Now, I guess that could apply to situations where we swear to God, hand on the Bible and that kind of, but wouldn't that also include a wedding vow? Well, then there's also the commandment about bearing false witness against your neighbor. Now, that sure does smack of courtroom testimony, doesn't it? Well, how about just don't lie? Okay, wouldn't that kind of cover it? Your word should be your bond, kind of thing. I think that's the general idea. But let me ask you this. Can, or even should, we always be completely honest? And the practical answer is, well, yeah, kind of, but, well, let me explain. I do think honesty is the best policy. But in the course of human events, we make promises, otherwise known as pledges or vows. Lots of them. Remember that part about entangling alliances? Suppose that you're in combat and you're captured by the enemy. Now you're going to be interrogated. Should you honestly answer their questions? That might be called treason, if you did. We routinely make promises to repay a loan agreement. Well, what if you were to later lose your job? Would it be possible to honor your pledge under those circumstances? And if that happened, would that make you a liar? Well, these are some vexing ethical problems that, quite frankly, have been debated for centuries by people way above my pay grade. So what thoughts can we take away from those debates that may help us, live our lives in an upright and honorable way? Well, first, let's agree on the biblical principle that warns us against oath-taking in the first place. Okay? In a broad sense, be stingy making promises. If you make enough of them, sooner or later, you're going to come up short and break one. Better to under-promise and over-deliver. But there's an even bigger problem. Sooner or later, we find ourselves in that damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Then what? Well, I kind of look at the account of Daniel for some guidance. He was pledged to God, but he was also a subject of the king and bound to obey the law of the land. And he had to make a choice. At risk to his own life, he chose to honor God. So, when we find ourselves in a situation where honoring one promise will cause us to dishonor another, well, choose wisely based on biblical principles rather than the pressure of the circumstances. Recently, we saw an example of this played out in the political arena. All the candidates made a pledge before the campaign to ultimately support the victor at the end of the day. Now, I assume that each one took their pledge in good faith. Well, as you can imagine, during the campaign, some toxic remarks and accusations and the mud started slinging and flying around. And one of the remarks or accusations or whatever, was made against the wife of one of the candidates. And guess what? The one that made those remarks ultimately won. Fair and square, I might add. Now what? Honoring the pledge to support the victor would implicitly dishonor your wife and family. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Well, regardless of which side you take on that, I would ask that we look at some biblical principles and meditate and reflect on them. First one is marriage is a God-ordained and therefore sacred institution. There's also a verse in there about removing the plank from our own eye before pointing out the speck in someone else's. And then I get back to where we started. Remember that thing in the Bible about taking oaths and pledges? An ounce of prevention is certainly worth a pound of cure. Well, that's what I've been thinking about lately, but I would certainly be interested in your thoughts. Would you be kind enough to leave your comments on the space provided on this page? Also, let's connect on Twitter. My Twitter identity is down at the bottom of the screen. And the text version of this video can be found at the address at the top of your screen. Now, I am honored to be one of the people, a team of brothers and sisters in Christ that make these videos from our daily devotions. And we offer them as a video so that we can share what we have learned in our journey. We certainly hope that it will be an inspiration to you, an empowerment to you, and an encouragement to you. If you would like to check out some of the other inspirational videos, I invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel.